What if the wildest creature on a billionaire's ranch was the only one who could recognize a forgotten child? What if the key to taming a beast wasn't power, but a whisper from the past? This isn't just a story about a boy and a horse. It's about a boy no one saw coming, a legacy buried in guilt, and the moment a quiet orphan stepped into the arena and changed everything. Stay with us, because what happens next will challenge everything you believe about strength, bloodlines, and redemption. If this story moved you, imagine how many others need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel right now for more unforgettable tales like this, where underdogs rise, truths surface, and legacies are rewritten. And don't forget to share this video with someone who still believes that even the quietest voice can tame the loudest storm. Tell us in the comments, what part of this story hit you the hardest? We're listening. The midday sun glared off the cracked pavement of Solivento's busiest intersection, turning car roofs into blistering mirrors. Luan weaved between vehicles with practiced speed, a dirty rag in one hand and a bottle of soapy water in the other. He wiped windshields and hoped, always hoped, for a coin, a smile, or at least not to be cursed at. As he knelt to clean a bumper smeared with red dust, two men leaned against a rusted pickup parked nearby. "I'm telling you, no one's lasted more than a minute on that devil," one said, voice half wrapped in awe. "Biggest stallion I ever seen, jet black, eyes like coals." The other scoffed. "Hector Valente's not playing. He's offering 100 grand for anyone who can stay on that monster." Luan froze mid-swipe. 100,000? The second man repeated. "Just to ride a horse?" "Not just any horse," the first muttered. "Inferno." Luan's breath caught. The name landed in his chest like a thrown stone. He slowly stood, watching the men without moving closer. "He threw off a champion rider last week," one added. "Broke 2 ribs and a wrist. Valente says he's done watching men try. Says it's the last offer." Luan's grip tightened around the rag as the light turned green. Horns blared. He stumbled back to the sidewalk, heart hammering. That night, the city turned colder than usual. Luan huddled behind a gas station dumpster, his thin shirt damp with sweat and grime. The ground was hard beneath him, but it was the only place the wind didn't bite through. He reached into his sock and pulled out the Uvoto. It was crumpled, the edges scorched, but he had protected it like treasure for as long as he could remember. A woman smiled in the photo. Warm, gentle eyes, a hand resting on the neck of a powerful black horse. The stallion's eyes, deep and alert, looked just like how the man had described Inferno. He'd always wondered who the woman was. A dream, a memory. His mother, maybe. "Was he yours?" Luan whispered to the horse in the picture, brushing dust from the crease. "Were you mine?" The air around him stirred, and for a moment the sounds of the city faded. All that remained was the pounding in his chest, and the impossible thought that maybe he had just heard a whisper from that horse. Sleep refused to come. Luan lay on his back, staring at the corrugated metal ceiling above. A breeze tugged at a sheet of cardboard near his head. The faint rumble of trucks passing on the highway echoed like thunder far away. He hummed softly, a lullaby he didn't know the words to, just the melody. His mother had sung it, or he thought she had. The tune always made him feel something. A field, hooves in the dust, and a woman's laugh. It was all too vague to trust, but that night, something shifted. "If he's real, if it's him, I have to find out," he muttered aloud. The photo lay next to him like a pact. By dawn, Luan had made up his mind. He filled a plastic bottle with water from the station's bathroom sink and tucked a stale biscuit into his pocket. Then he approached a man working behind the counter. "Hey, mister," Luan said, voice raspy. "You know where that ranch is? The one with the black horse no one can ride?" The man raised an eyebrow. "What business does a street kid have with a place like that? I just need directions." The man smirked, but eventually pointed. "Out past the bridge, then you follow the dirt road for a few hours. But I'm telling you, boy, it ain't a place for someone like you." Luan nodded. "Thanks." He left the man's doubt behind with his footprints. The walk was brutal. The sun beat down, and the asphalt gave way to cracked dirt and thorn bushes. His feet blistered and his tongue dried out. But Luan didn't stop, not once. He didn't know exactly why he was doing this. He only knew he had to. By late afternoon, the outline of the Valente estate appeared through the heat shimmer. Fences wrapped the property like arms, guarding a secret. Horses could be seen in the distance, silhouetted against the golden hills. And there it was, the training arena, silent but looming. Two men stood by the main gate, rifles slung casually across their shoulders. One of them spotted Luan and stepped forward. "You lost, kid? I want to see Mr. Valente," Luan said. The guards blinked, then burst out laughing. "And why's that?" one asked. "I want to ride the horse," Luan replied. They laughed louder. "You mean Inferno? The horse that nearly killed 2 grown men last month?" The taller guard leaned forward. "You're what, 10? 13, Luan said. "Almost. Run along, boy. This place ain't for stunts or stories." But Luan didn't budge. "I'll come back tomorrow." The guards watched as the boy sat just outside the gate, pulling his knees to his chest. He looked exhausted, half-starved and completely serious. And though they didn't say it aloud, something about him unsettled them. The sun hadn't even lifted its full weight off the hills when Luan returned to the gate. Same torn shirt, same tired eyes, the same two. Guards stood with rifles slung over their shoulders, sipping coffee from tin mugs. "You again," one muttered, barely amused. "I told you I'd come back. Boy, you really think you've got something the rest don't?" The taller one leaned over the fence, squinting. "Inferno's not a pony. He'll kill you." "I want to try." The guards exchanged glances and shrugged. "No one's letting you in," the other said, his tone sharper now. "Go back to wherever you came from." But Luan didn't leave. He sat in, the exact same spot as the day before, crossed his legs and stared straight ahead. Time passed. The sun climbed, sweat beaded on his neck, and the dust clung to his bare ankles. Still, he didn't move. By the time the shadows grew long again, ranch workers were beginning to whisper. That night, Luan curled under a mesquite tree near the outer fence. He drank from a shallow stream that cut through the lower pasture and ate the crust of bread he'd saved from the day before. The ground was hard. His back ached, but he slept, and the next morning he returned, again and again. By the third day, the laughter had faded. Now the guards just sighed when they saw him. "Morning," Luan greeted them. Yeah, we know," one muttered. A ranch hand in his 60s, leathery and silent, passed by with a feed sack slung over his shoulder. He paused, looked at Luan without a word, and dropped a half-eaten biscuit at his feet. Luan looked up. "Thanks." The man didn't answer, just walked on. Luan sat under the same tree that night, chewing slowly, staring up at the stars. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. By the 4th morning, murmurs had reached the main house. "Still out there?" Hector asked as he poured his black coffee. The head of security nodded. 4th day, same spot. "Won't leave, won't shut up about riding Inferno." Hector paused, spoon midway to his mouth. "A boy? Scrawny thing, barely up to my ribs." Hector set the cup down with a quiet thunk. He walked to the window, pushing open the shutter. Dust floated in the morning light. "Let him in." The guard blinked. "Sir, I said, let him in. I want to see him myself." The gate creaked open for the first time in days. Luan stood slowly, his legs stiff, heart racing. The courtyard of the estate was massive, stone paths, trimmed hedges, a wraparound veranda. But Luan's eyes were fixed on the man waiting at the top of the steps. Hector Valente, tall, composed, eyes sharp as a hawk's. Luan's instinct told him this was the one man he shouldn't lie to. "You're the one who's been sitting at my gate," Hector said. "Yes, sir." "You want to ride my horse?" "Yes." "Do you know what you're asking?" "I think so." Hector stepped down slowly. "Men twice your size have left bleeding. Inferno doesn't listen. He doesn't forgive." "I don't want to control him. I just want to try." That stopped Hector. He studied the boy's face, the deep-set hazel eyes, the dirt clinging to his skin, the calm that defied reason. "What's your name?" "Lion." "Where are your parents?" "I don't know." Hector's brow twitched. Why him, he asked, voice lower now. Why this horse? Luan hesitated. Because I think I've seen him before. Impossible. I think maybe he was in a photo. One I've always had. My mom. She was with a horse just like him. Hector's jaw clenched, but he gave nothing away. You understand the risk? I do. And you still want to? Yes. Hector looked away for a moment, staring toward the barn. Be tomorrow, here, he said finally. At dawn. If you're going to die, I'd rather it happen before lunch. Hector's orders moved through the estate like thunder. Clear the arena, notify the staff. Bring Inferno in first light. No distractions, no assistance. Why? One of the workers whispered. What's so special about this kid? Don't know, another replied. But the boss is watching this one himself. Meanwhile, Luan returned to his tree beneath the fence. One of the younger ranch hands, barely out of his teens, wandered over with a wool blanket in hand. I heard you're going in tomorrow, he said, not unkindly. You got guts, kid. Luan accepted the blanket. Thanks. The boy hesitated, then added, You sure you know what you're doing? No, Luan replied honestly, but I know I have to. That night, as the ranch quieted and the moon bathed the dirt in silver light, Hector stood alone on the veranda. He lit a cigarette, exhaled slowly, and stared toward the arena. Something about that boy unsettled him, not because of who he was, but because of what he might be. And why, for the first time in years, Hector had said yes. The arena was silent, the kind of silence that hummed with tension. Early sunlight sliced across the dust in golden streaks. A thin mist of sand lingered above the ground, kicked up by nervous movements and quiet preparations. Luan stood barefoot at the center, his toes curling slightly into the warm earth. Around him, the fence creaked with the weight of onlookers, ranch hands, stable boys, a few curious locals, all murmuring among themselves. Is that him? The street kid? No saddle? You've got to be joking. But no one was laughing. Hector stood on the far end of the arena, arms crossed tightly, face unreadable. He gave no signal. He only watched. Luan's heart beat steady but fast. The circle around him felt both sacred and dangerous. He looked up briefly at the pale blue sky, then closed his eyes and took a breath through his nose. He wasn't afraid of the horse. He was afraid the horse wouldn't come. The far gate groaned open. Two handlers emerged with thick ropes, backs tense, hands gloved. Between them, hooves thundered against the boards. Slow, deliberate steps. Then came Inferno, massive, midnight black, flanks gleaming like oiled stone. His red-tinged eyes darted wildly across the ring as if looking for something or someone to destroy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. God help him! Inferno yanked against the ropes, forcing one handler to stumble sideways. His neck arched like a bow drawn tight. When he spotted Luan standing quietly in the center, he stopped, just for a moment. The handlers released the ropes and retreated fast. Inferno didn't charge, not yet. He began pacing in a wide circle, nostrils flared, tail twitching with irritation. He passed within 10 feet of Luan, never breaking eye contact. Luan stood perfectly still. No shouts, no raised hands, just breath. The crowd watched in tense disbelief as the boy didn't flinch, didn't run, didn't even blink when the stallion passed again, closer this time. What's he doing? Someone whispered. Nothing, came the reply. Absolutely nothing. Inferno snorted and tossed his head, kicking up dirt, testing the air. But the boy's scent didn't carry fear, not like the others. Luan lowered his gaze, not in submission, but as if giving the stallion permission to choose. When Inferno trotted around again, his pace slowed. The air between them began to change. He's not trying to tame him, Hector thought from the rail. He's listening. The wind shifted. Luan moved one step, just one, toward the outer ring. Slowly, deliberately. Inferno stopped. Another breath, another step. This was no training. This was invitation. Inferno let out a low, puzzled sound. He didn't rear, he didn't bolt. He watched. Luan moved again, just close enough that the dust stirred between them. He dropped to one knee and scooped up a handful of dry earth, letting it fall through his. With fingers in silence, the horse snorted, and for a terrifying second, his hooves stamped the ground hard. "Move, boy!" someone shouted from the fence. But Luan didn't. Instead, he whispered, not to the crowd, but to the horse. "Do you remember her?" he said so quietly only the wind could carry it. "Because I think I do." Inferno's ears twitched. Luan extended his hand. Open, empty, still. The stallion stepped forward. One hoof, then the next. The dust swirled around them as the beast approached the boy, and then, without force, without command, Inferno lowered his head. Luan's palm met his muzzle like a second heartbeat. No one breathed. Luan stepped gently to the stallion's side, one hand trailing along the thick neck, the other sliding up to the withers. Inferno flinched, just once, but didn't move away. No reins, no bridle, no saddle. Luan whispered again, and with a smooth motion, he swung his leg over and seated himself on Inferno's bare back. A tremor moved through the watching crowd. Like thunder in dry grass, Inferno shifted beneath him, but didn't throw him. Instead, he walked. A slow, precise circle. Luan sat still, hands on the horse's mane, his posture quiet and grounded. At the fence, Hector's fingers tightened around the railing. His throat felt tight, though he wasn't sure why. The black stallion stopped in the center of the arena. Luan lifted his head. The hush that followed was deeper than silence. It was reverence. The arena stayed hushed long after Inferno came to a stop. Luan slid down from the horse's back with the same quiet grace he'd shown the entire time. He didn't rush. He didn't stumble. He simply let his bare feet find the earth again. Inferno remained still behind him, head lowered slightly, as if something sacred had just passed between them. No one moved. Then a murmur broke through the crowd. Astonishment, disbelief, awe. Ranch hands looked at each other as if needing confirmation that what they'd seen was real. Hector stepped forward from the rail, boots crunching in the dirt. His face was unreadable, but his eyes never left the boy. Luan walked toward him, chin up, expression steady. When they stood face to face, the difference in size, power, and status should have made Luan seem small. It didn't. "You said I could try," Luan said softly. "I did." Hector stared at him for a long moment. "You didn't just try," he said. "You did the impossible." Back at the house, the staff buzzed with speculation. The boy had done it. The feral, barefoot boy. And now Hector Valente, a man known for his silence, had invited him inside. In the study, Hector poured himself a drink. The bottle clinked against the glass as he tried to calm a shake in his hand he hadn't felt in years. Luan sat across from him, still dusty, still barefoot, still composed. "You earned this," Hector said, pulling a drawer open. He placed a thick envelope on the table. 100,000, that's what I promised. Luan didn't move to take it. "I don't want the money," he said quietly. Hector blinked. "You don't want it?" Luan shook his head. "I want something else." The room went still again, the weight shifting from gold to something more fragile. Hector leaned forward slightly. "Go on." Luan lowered his eyes for the first time. "I want a bed," he said. "Not one that gets taken away in the morning." He took a breath. "I want 2 meals a day. I want to go to school. I want to learn how to read all the way through." Hector said nothing. "I want a place where I can stay without someone chasing me off." Luan looked up again. That's all. It was so simple, so ordinary, and yet something in Hector twisted at the request. Not riches, not fame, just permanence, safety. "You're sure?" Hector asked. "That's all you want?" Luan nodded. "Yes, sir." Hector stood and walked to the window, watching as a ranch hand led Inferno quietly across the field. The stallion followed without a fight. He thought about the letter Clara had written to him once. About the child she was carrying, about the way he had never answered. This boy, this strange, stubborn, unyielding child, had stepped into the ring and done what men couldn't. He had asked not for wealth, but for a place in the world. A place Hector had denied his mother. He turned back. "There's a guest room in the main house," he said. "It's yours now." Luan blinked. You'll eat with us. You'll start school next week. I'll take care of it. Luan sat still, lips parting just slightly. Thank you, he whispered. Hector gave a slight nod. You've earned it. But deep down, he knew this wasn't about earning. It was about setting something right. That night, Luan lay in a real bed for the first time he could remember. The sheets were crisp, the mattress soft. A window overlooked the stables, and the quiet outside wasn't filled with traffic or shouting, but crickets, wind, and the gentle whinny of horses. He got up and walked to the hallway, feet padding softly over the wooden floors. Large painting caught his eye. A horse, familiar, the same black eyes, the same proud stance. It was Inferno. No, not Inferno. Luan stepped closer. The plaque beneath it read, Tempest, Champion Stallion, 1999, a gift of love. His chest tightened. He pulled the photo from his pocket. The one burned around the edges, the one he had carried all his life. Side by side, the photo and painting matched. The horse his mother once touched was the same blood as the beast he had just tamed. And Hector, Valente, this man, had once given that horse to someone he loved. Luan stood in the quiet hallway, shadows curling around him. A question began to form, and somewhere deep inside, the answer was already whispering back. The morning light stretched long and golden through the hallway, catching on the edges of the frame that had haunted Luan since he arrived. The painting, majestic, proud, aching, depicted the horse he now knew was Tempest. And under Tempest's shadow, he could almost imagine the shape of a woman brushing her hand along his flank. Luan held up the burnt photograph again. The match was too perfect. The horse in his mother's arms was the same bone structure, same eyes. He traced the lines in the photo, then looked up at the oil paint cracked with time. A voice startled him. You're up early. He turned to find Hector at the end of the hall, coffee in one hand, watching him with curious detachment. Luan hesitated. Who painted this? My father commissioned it. Back, when Tempest won a string of championships. Luan looked back at it. He looks just like Inferno. He should. Inferno's his last son. Hector started walking again. You like horses. That much is clear. I think my mom did too, Luan replied carefully. She's in this photo, with Tempest. Hector stopped mid-step. Luan didn't push. He simply said, I was just wondering what her name was, and then walked away, leaving silence behind him. The kitchen buzzed with breakfast prep. Eggs sizzling, knives chopping, someone humming faintly out of tune. Luan sat quietly at the corner of the table, a plate in front of him and his ears open. He was learning that grown-ups always talked when they thought kids weren't listening. I saw him staring at the painting again, murmured Rosa, the cook. He's got the same eyes she had, said one of the stable hands. Remember Clara? Luan flinched. I thought she was long gone, Rosa muttered, lowering her voice. Ran off pregnant, didn't she? That's what they say. Hector never talks about it. Wasn't that horse, Tempest, a gift to her? Luan set his fork down slowly. Something heavy sat in his chest now. He pushed his chair back and walked out without finishing the meal. He needed more than whispers. He needed the truth. The study was dim, cool, and smelled of leather and tobacco. Shelves lined the walls, and Hector's desk stood solid at the center like a judge's bench. Luan waited until the house was asleep. He crept through the hall, barefoot, opening the door without a sound. His fingers trembled as he approached the desk. In the bottom drawer, beneath neat files and folded newspaper clippings, he found them. Letters wrapped in a faded blue ribbon. The first one was addressed only to H. The handwriting was elegant, familiar. You never answered me, Hector. Maybe I should have known better than to hope, but I'm writing again because the baby is coming. I don't want anything from you, not anymore, but I thought you should. No, his name will be Luan. Luan's throat tightened. Another letter, unsent, tucked behind the first one, carried a tiny photo inside. His mother, younger than he remembered, stood next to Tempest in the sun. A note on the back, smudged but legible, so he'll know where he came from, if nothing else. Tears burned at Luan's eyes. She had tried. She had reached out. Hector had turned her away, and Luan had paid the price. The barn was still and warm, the air filled with the scent of hay and old wood. Inferno stood in his stall, head lowered, eyes watching as Luan entered with the photo pressed to his chest. Luan walked up to the stall and rested his head gently against the door. "You knew her, didn't you?" he whispered. Inferno stepped closer, his breath warm on Luan's cheek. The stallion didn't flinch, didn't pull away. Instead, he gently touched the photo with his nose. Luan lifted it, showing him the image again. "She loved you," he murmured. "She took this for me, so I wouldn't forget." He slid the photo into his pocket, then opened the stall door. Inferno stepped out on his own, calm and sure. They walked together. No reins, no rope. Just two beings bonded by something neither could name. The next morning, Luan stood on the veranda as Hector stepped outside. The older man looked tired, like he hadn't slept. Luan held nothing in his hands this time. No photograph, no letters, just a question. "Did you ever love someone who vanished?" he asked. Hector's face didn't move, but his jaw clenched, and a flicker of something dark passed through his eyes. Luan didn't press. He only waited. Hector opened his mouth as if to answer, but closed it again. Without a word, he turned and walked back inside, closing the office door behind him. Luan didn't cry, but inside, something folded in on itself. A truth had started to crack open, and the man who might hold the rest of it wasn't ready to let it out. Not yet. The rain came out of nowhere. Sheets of it lashed the windows of the main house as Hector stood in his office, hands gripping the windowsill, staring out toward the arena. Thunder cracked in the distance. A knock came at the door. "Mr. Valente," said Marcos, the ranch's head of operations, stepping inside. He hesitated. "There's a call. A journalist from Country Journal said they've heard rumors about the boy and Inferno." Hector's jaw tightened. What kind of rumors? About how Inferno let him ride, about who the boy might be. The silence stretched. "Shut it down," Hector said at last. "No interviews, no statements. I want every gate closed." "But sir, now." Marcos left, his boots echoing down the hallway. Behind him, Hector sank into his chair and covered his face with his hand. The past was waking, and it was coming for him. Luan found old Tiao, the retired stable hand, fixing a latch near the lower pasture. The man was older than the barn itself, stooped, sun-darkened, and sharp-eyed. "I know you remember her," Luan said without preamble. Tiao didn't answer. He kept hammering. "I saw the letters. I saw her face in the photo. I heard the staff talking." Tiao stopped. He looked over slowly. "Clara," Luan nodded. "She was brave," the old man said. "Soft-spoken, walked into the stables like she already belonged." "Did she come back after she left?" Tiao stared at the cracked wood. "Once," he said. "Pregnant, maybe 7, 8 months along. Wanted to speak to Hector." "What happened?" Tiao shrugged, but the sorrow in his voice betrayed him. He never saw her, said he was too busy. She left that same afternoon, never came back. Luan's breath caught. "And no one went after her?" Tiao looked at him. "We didn't know what she carried until it was too late. The town archives were tucked between the bakery and the pharmacy, dusty and rarely visited. Luan walked the miles alone. He didn't ask permission. He didn't need it. Inside, the records keeper, a gray-haired woman with arthritis-swollen fingers, squinted at his request. "Fire, you say? A shelter?" "Yes, about 12 years ago. She disappeared into the back and returned with a box that smelled of mildew and ash, newspaper clippings, emergency reports. One headline stood out, "Tragedy at Santa Clara Shelter. Woman perishes saving infant in blaze." Luan's fingers trembled as he read. The woman's name wasn't printed, just unidentified female, presumed mother of the child. But the date matched. The description matched. The fire had happened a week after. Clara's returned to the ranch. She had gone back to the city, carrying Luan. She had died, saving him. The storm had passed by the time Luan returned. The clouds still hung low, heavy, but the sky had cracked open in patches of weak blue. He walked straight into the house and into Hector's office. Hector looked up from his desk, eyes bloodshot, a drink in his hand. "I know everything," Luan said. Hector stiffened. "I went to the archives. I spoke to Tiao. I found the letters." Hector's fingers curled around the glass. "You turned her away," Luan said, his voice hollow. "She came back. You didn't even speak to her." "I didn't know. You didn't want to know." The silence was suffocating. "She died in a fire, trying to save me." The shelter collapsed. Hector stood slowly, eyes wide, guilt carved into the lines of his face. I didn't know she was gone." "You should have," Luan said. Hector dropped into his chair, burying his face in his hands. "I was a coward." The sun dipped low, casting gold across the worn wood of the arena fence. Luan sat with his legs dangling over the side. Hector approached slowly, unsure of his place. "I didn't think you'd want to see me," Hector said. "I wasn't sure either," Luan replied, not looking at him. "I thought about what you said, what I did." Luan was silent. "I can give you the family name, the house, everything. You don't need to ask." Luan looked over. "I don't want everything," he said quietly. "I just want truth. No, I mattered before I showed up here. That my mother mattered." "She did," Hector said. "She always did. I just didn't know how to love someone who didn't need me. She needed you more than anyone. I see that now." They sat together for a long time. The wind stirred the dust at their feet, and for the first time they shared a silence not born of avoidance, but understanding. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of cedar shavings and clean hay. Luan stood in front of the stable, where Inferno slept peacefully. His fingers traced the letters newly carved into the thick wooden beam above the door. Luan Valente. The last name felt foreign and familiar all at once, like a jacket that didn't fit at first, but might if he kept wearing it. Behind him, Hector approached. "Had it done yesterday." Luan glanced up at him. "You didn't ask." "I didn't need to," Hector replied. "It was never about claiming you. It was about making sure no one else forgot who you are." Luan nodded, unsure of what to say, but something inside him settled, quietly, like a horse learning to trust its rider. The school was small. One room, a few desks, chalk dust floating in shafts of sunlight. Most of the ranch hands' children sat with open books, their eyes widening as Luan entered. He felt exposed, nervous, more nervous than when he first stepped into the arena. But then the teacher, a kind-eyed woman named Donna Elisa, gave him a nod. "Everyone, this is Luan. He'll be joining us from now on." Some of the boys smirked. One girl offered a smile. Luan sat near the back, clutching a pencil like it might vanish. He listened carefully, wrote slowly, asked nothing. After class, Donna Elisa walked beside him down the path that curved toward the fields. "I heard what you did with the horse," she said. Luan shrugged. "I just listened." She smiled. "That's the hardest thing to do." Later that afternoon, a few ranch hands lingered by the training arena as Luan led a young foal out for the first time. "Don't yank," he told one of them softly. "Breathe with him." They watched as the animal calmed beneath Luan's touch, a whisper instead of a command. Inferno was older now, calmer, still wild at times, still proud, but no longer angry. Luan rubbed down his flanks as the stallion chewed softly at fresh hay. In the next stall, a black foal stood on wobbly legs, Inferno's firstborn. Luan knelt beside him, offering his hand the same way he had years before. The foal sniffed it, then nudged him gently with its soft nose. "You're not your father," Luan whispered, "but you carry him inside." He stood as Hector entered the barn. "You'll name him?" Hector asked. Luan looked over at the foal again. "Brisa." "Breeze," Hector repeated. "Fitting." Luan looked up at the man, his grandfather, and smiled faintly. "Storms passed." Hector's voice cracked. "Let's not forget it, but let's not live in it either." At dusk, Luan knelt beside a tree near the arena. It was old, hollow in the center, and wrapped in flowering vines. He held a folded piece of paper in his hands, the lines filled with writing in his slowly improving script. He read aloud softly, "Dear Mom, I didn't know your name until recently, but I always knew you were there. I found the horse you loved, I found the man you once trusted, and I found myself. I'm not alone anymore. I sleep inside, I go to school, I eat every day. He's trying, Mom. The man who once failed you, he's trying for me. I think you'd forgive him. I think you'd tell me to. I miss you, even though I never knew you. But I think you'd be proud. Love, Lion. He tucked the letter inside the tree, where the wind wouldn't find it, but time might. Then he stood and walked back toward the house, his shadow long and sure behind him. The sky blushed orange and violet as the sun sank behind the hills. Hector stood at the fence, watching as Luan guided Brisa in slow circles through the arena. Inferno watched from the edge, as if guarding them both. He doesn't push the animal, Marcos, the old ranch hand, said quietly beside Hector. He partners with it. Hector nodded, eyes misted. He's not breaking horses. He's teaching them to trust. Luan looked over and caught Hector's eye. They exchanged a glance. No words, no need for them. A whisper passed between them. The wind stirred. The sky softened. And somewhere deep in Hector's heart, the storm that had haunted him for decades finally lay down, not silenced by strength, but by a boy who listened. What does it truly mean to tame something wild, not with power, but with presence? In a world where force is often mistaken for strength, Luan showed us that gentleness can move mountains and whispers can silence storms. But here's what still lingers. Did Inferno recognize Luan? Or was it Luan who remembered something buried in his blood? And what would have happened if Clara had never left that letter behind? Stories like this don't just live in books, they echo in real life. So tell me, what part of this journey hit you hardest? Was it the moment Luan stepped into the ring, or the moment he stepped into Hector's heart? If this story stirred something in you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more stories like this, where broken pasts meet second chances and quiet strength speaks louder than any scream. And if you believe someone else needs to hear this message of redemption, family, and healing, share this video. Let's keep the whispers moving.